Hello and welcome to another Conversations with Carrie and Dani. Just a time where we sit and have an informal chat about our experiences in our past lives and our current lives and how things are going now. Um, just mostly about our experiences in the Seventh Day Adventist Church and what it was like to leave, reasons why we left, et cetera, et cetera. So we just talk about whatever might be on our hearts and in our minds when we decide to press record, I guess. So, Dani, what's up with you today?
Um, oh, I was talking to a friend last night. She's in hospital and she's unwell. And I've been dying to tell you about this. So I was chatting away with her and I was telling her a little bit about my story and about being in the church. And I said to her, telling her about a time in my early 30s where I had started going to dance class and then I'd gone out on a couple of times on a Friday night and actually I'd had half a glass of wine. But I'd been dancing after the Sabbath hours, still got up and went to church, but I'd been doing these things. And I was telling her how guilty I felt,
Mm-hmm.
how absolutely guilty I felt, and how terrible it was. But I still kept doing it. But the guilt was overwhelming. And I said to her, I found myself saying to her last night, if you're listening, hi, I won't mention her name, but she knows
Yeah.
who she is.
Yep.
I found myself saying to her, it's really weird because I can give you a long list of all the things that I know I shouldn't do, and a long list of things that I feel really guilty about, a long list of sins that I committed deliberately, knowing that it might mean in that moment I was going to go to hell
Mm-hmm.
and I'd never get to heaven and God didn't love me anymore.
Mm.
And I said to her, I don't know how. I don't know how to let go of the fact that I now know those things aren't sins.
Right.
And it was sort of like, you can't just go, oh, it's not a sin anymore, throw it on, and then all the emotional baggage that come with it, it doesn't just magically vanish. I
Right.
think people have a weird idea about what freedom's going to feel like. It's not just there has been over the last 6 months some amazing moments of like instant freedom, but there's also been a lot of weird things. And so along the way, I was thinking, Carrie, about so behind all of that, I got to thinking about some of the big fears. And
Mm.
so I thought maybe we could have a talk about them. I
Sure.
don't want to do, if people want to know, there's bound to be people out there that are going to say, oh, that's not the church I grew up in, those fears didn't
Right.
exist. And so my answer to that is, if you're in the Adventist church, if you're in a different high control religion, might have some of these, you might not. But if you're in the Adventist, Seventh Adventist church, and you say, oh, that's not what they taught me, here's my answer to you. You have, especially if you're a baptized member, you have signed a document to say that
Yes.
you are a member of this church.
Yep.
You signed a baptismal document that says you believe in and support Ellen White and everything she says.
Yeah.
So, with everything I'm going to say today, if you're thinking that's not my Adventism, one, check your baptismal certificate if you're
Yep.
baptized. Two, go to the Ellen White estate. It's online, it's free. Put these words in, and you will get pages and pages of
Mm-hmm.
information that supports that she said these things. The Adventist Church does not exist without Ellen White. So that's all I'm going to say on that. If people don't want to hear what I've got to say, then go listen to last week's video or a new one. If you,
Yeah.
but I really encourage everyone to be brave if they're not already and to think about these things.
Well,
So
and
I don't have,
we have to remember too that we're speaking from our experience as well. And some people may be like, that wasn't my experience. Well, that's good. I'm glad that wasn't your experience, but we are speaking from our experience. My experience being a member, I was baptized at like 11, but I spent 45 years of my life in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. 20
mm,
years of my marriage was spent married to a employee of the church. We're still married, by the way. So my perspective is certainly speaking with some authority for how things look here in the Midwest of the United States. Dani's experience is slightly different because she's in New
yeah,
Zealand,
yeah,
and has had a different life experience, but we're speaking from our experiences.
yeah. But I think what you said is really important too, Carrie, because I know there's a lot of stuff on the internet at the moment, and there's stuff here and there of people saying, "Oh, I left the church and here's why." But a lot of those people were only in it for, they left at 17 when they were teenagers, and
Right.
everything they said's valid. But
100%.
there's still an even deeper depth than they realize. And I noticed a lot of people were going, "Oh, you weren't even in it long enough to know." But both of us have been in it long enough to know. I spent over 50 years in it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah. So I
Yep.
was thinking about if I asked, so I'll give you the top one of if someone said to me, what is like one of the top fears or things that you think the church, like if someone said, what's the top fear that you think the church programmed into you or taught you using a Bible base they taught you and that impacted on your life and that maybe was used to control me. So if I had to think of the biggest fear off that list, um, I think for me, the biggest fear would be the fear of um end times,
Mm-hmm.
like the whole big end time thing. And actually, I've got about 6 or 7 little micro fears that come under that. But for me, it'd be
Right.
like end times.
Sure.
Um, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. So end times. My brain just went, I want to start here. I want to start
Sure.
with a story because this is really recent for me and it helps explain why it's a big topic for me.
Uh-huh.
So, my mum recently went into a dementia home.
Mm.
She couldn't care for herself anymore. But it's been 3 years now. And for the last 18 months, 2 years, I'd talk to her every day, sometimes twice a day. But she
Mm-hmm.
was still living in her own home, and my brother was helping care for her. And it's something she's always said, but it got stronger probably 4 or 5 years ago when she started. I'm an adult, okay? I'm an adult and I have my own opinions. But when someone that in that sort of position, like your mum, says something to you over and over again over years of time, it can be really hard. And so she kept used to say, "Oh, I can't wait till Jesus comes back." That's really great. I can live with that. But then when the whole COVID stuff hit, I guess she'd always said it quietly, but I'd never heard what she was really saying. She started to be more overt about it. And she kept saying, "I want to die. I want to die. I want to die before Jesus comes back. I don't want to live through all that stuff. I don't want to be locked up. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to be starved.
Sure.
I want to die. And I want to die. I don't want to be. I want to die before any of those bad things happen at the end of time."
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that she'd always talked about, and it's something that was always talked about in church. I mean, I went to Pathfinders. Did they do that to you in Pathfinders? I can remember them reading. They read stories out of the Fox's Book of Martyrs. We didn't watch television at home because Mum
Oh, Danny, you have paused.
protected us
Oh,
from
there you
violence. And the church, this is the under 10s, right? For what they used to call the really young ones. Oh, sorry, my connection's unstable. What did we miss?
go. You just said talking about Pathfinders reading the Fox's Book of Martyrs, then talking about the young ones under tens. Then that was all kind of garbled.
Okay, so I would have been under the age of 10.
Okay. Yep.
Or it might have even been in the 10 to 12-year-old age bracket, but still a really thing when they were reading stories from the Fox's Book of Martyrs. So we're reading about people that were tied up. I wasn't even watching violent telly. And I'm getting stories at Pathfinders about people that were tied up and burned at the stake, and while the graphic details about how when the flames are engulfing them, they're singing hymns and praises. And the Bible says that, this is what it's going to be like at the end times. What did you get about these things? I mean, is this just me with these stories or?
Um, no, I know we had the book Project Sunlight, which was similar, I think, to your now. Remember
Yeah.
reading that? I actually do I have that copy? Yes, I have it actually right here. Read that one. I need to
I've
sit and
got
read it again just to and then it was
I've got that exact book.
do
I've got
you
the
have
exact
did you
same
have this
one.
one too?
No, no, just the yellow one you had, Project Sunlight. I had the exact one. Same
So
cover and everything.
so this one is about a woman pre-flood who knew Enoch and all of that, and so it talks about her experience before the flood happened. And I think they kind of go hand in hand because this is sort of an end timey type situation as
Ah,
well.
okay.
Because she was one of the good, um, I remember just being like trying to figure out, and especially now I'm thinking about this as the mom of as a mother now, and you hear these stories about how, oh, if you unless you renounce Jesus, unless you renounce the Sabbath or whatever, your kids are going to get killed or whatever. And I'm like, as a mom right now, I'd be like, in order to save the life of my kid, I would have renounced, like, I would do anything.
Mm.
I mean, that's unfortunate. I mean, and you almost feel guilty about that even now, where I'm just like, there is absolutely no way if they put a gun to the head of one of my kids and said, you do this or we'll kill your kids. I'm like, whatever you need me to do, I will do it because I want to save my kids. And that, to me, that fear and of how you can, it was just crazy. And now, and you look at this, and there's a clip. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a pastor. It's been, I think Mike Colburn referenced it in one of his recent videos on the Thinking Cup about how, might have been him, might have been somebody else, about in the worst people in hell will not be Hitler, but will be former Seventh Day Adventists. Have you seen that?
Brooks. Yeah, it's a American preacher, Brooks.
Oh, see,
Trying to think-
see,
yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah.
one.
It,
Yep. And he actually says the most miserable people in hell the most miserable person in won't be hell. The most miserable person in hell will be an ex-Seventh-day Adventist. The
yep.
most the saddest person in hell will be someone that is there because they left the Adventist church and they realized that if they'd stayed in the church, then they wouldn't be in hell.
And
That's what
I
he's
would,
talking about.
and it said we will be the worst persecutors of the Adventists in the end times. And I will share with my new Sunday keeper friends, now that I'm a Sunday keeper, say that, you guys are going to hunt us down. You're going to hunt down the Adventists at the end times. Did you know that? And the look on their faces is amused but terrified, like just gobsmacked, just like, why would we do that? And just the fear of that is like, why? And the reality is, and a lot of Adventists may decide to argue with me about this, but most people who go to church on Sunday don't necessarily care if you go to church on Sunday, Wednesday, Thursday, at noon on Tuesday. It's not that big of a, I mean, it's not as, Jesus is
Not a
your
salvation
Sabbath.
issue.
You're resting in Jesus. So it doesn't necessarily matter what day. Some
Yeah.
will strongly keep the parameters of Sunday. There are few of them. There's some German Baptists in this area that are very conservative with their Sundays, but
Mm.
most are not. I mean, many non-denominational or even denominational churches will have a Saturday night service.
Oh my
You
goodness.
know?
Carrie, my nan, so my mum's mum, my nan, she wouldn't even turn the shower on and shower Saturday morning before church.
Yep.
Um, she would have to shower Friday before sunset. So she wouldn't even shower on a Saturday, forget even those other things. Hey, do your kids know what you shared that you would do anything to save them? I'm just asking because as you spoke that, I'd never thought about it. I'd never thought about it. And I suddenly realized that I never ever considered that my mum would do anything like that, renounce anything to save us. I was always convinced that she'd do what the church said was right, which is go, oh, well, God will save my kids. You can shoot them.
Well, and I think I would like to think that all of the women in my family, my mother, my grandmother, even though Adventist to the core, would not allow anything to happen to their kids. Like I think deep in our core, that protecting mother instinct is stronger than if you then anybody really understands, you know.
Yes, but I've got a but, and I got a but. Got time for a rabbit hole.
Sure. We love rabbit
Here's my
holes.
rabbit hole. So this is coming from my personal experience. Okay,
Hmm.
so to put it in context, I decided as an adult that my mum was definitely undiagnosed and on the autism scale, and two of my brothers are really, really autistic. Um, and I see traits of it occasionally in me, but I'd be definitely on the high functioning end.
Hmm.
So back to what I was going to say. Oh, my brain's gone fuzzy suddenly. I hate those moments where I just forgot. Tell me again what you said, and it might remind me what I wanted to share.
Something about the mother instinct of protection and whether or not my kids knew that that's how I felt.
Yes,
Yes, there you go. I
got it.
got you.
Okay, so this is something I'd never thought about till the last 6 months, and attachment. So this is half of my personal experience because I've always felt that my mum had a weird attachment to us kids, and I'd look at other people's families, and I would think, oh, why can't my mum be as nice as theirs? But she was actually nicer to other people's kids. And I believe a lot of this stems from the teachings of Ellen White. Okay, so my mum, for a long time, spent time in very conservative parts of the Adventist church,
Hmm.
what gets called like the CBs, they call them, the conservative
Sure.
brethren.
Yep.
I don't know if they call them that in America.
I don't know if they necessarily have a name here, but I know who
In
you're
Australia,
talking about.
they choose to call them the CBs. So mum
Yep.
spent a lot of time with the CBs, and really, really, really extra Ellen White focus, even more than the average Adventist. And so my question is, if you are taught as a parent, and now I don't want to get into the whole complicated original sin thing, but this is where I'm heading. If you're taught as a parent that your child is born sinful, this is what's taught. You go look at Ellen White's writings. Your
Yep.
child is born really, really sinful. Excuse me, waving my arms around, but I get
No,
so emotional about this stuff.
you're good.
Your child is born really sinful. And your job as a parent is to raise them in the word and train the sin out of them.
Hmm.
It's got to mess with your attachment. How can you have the same level of attachment to a baby and a child thinking, I'm holding a little bundle of sin that I've got to fix?
Mm.
Not, here is a gift that God gave me. Let's raise
Yeah.
it up to have a
Yeah.
wonderful life. It screws with attachment right from scratch. And I get, now that I'm out, when I was in, it just was normal. Yeah, it was normal. That's a parent's job, you know. Don't let your kid get away with that shit because you'll pay for it later. And um, now that I'm out, I get really angry about it, and I'm sure it's got a lot to do with the weird attachment that not just my parents, but I saw it. I saw it in a lot of families.
Hmm.
It's got to screw with parents being told, "Here's a little bundle of sin.
Mm.
Fix it. That's your job. Fix it."
Well, and I think I've been doing some, you go down the rabbit hole of like the Bill Gothard shiny happy people stuff. I don't know if you've looked into that. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but they're talking about blanket training and the babies and how you're supposed to, you don't let
Mm.
that you make them cry it out. My children, they are now in their 20s, so they're adults. When they cried, there was something wrong, and I went and took care of it, cuddled them, fed them, whatever it needs to be, because they need to know their mom is there. And the whole strict schedule with a kid, once you think you have them figured out, they're going to change it. When they're, especially that first year of life, it's so important to, there are times though when mom needs a break. I get that, but that child needs to know that mom and dad are there for them regardless. And that first little bit of time, I don't know how anybody can look at the precious little bundle, like you said, and say this is a little sinning monster already, and they're crying just because they're sinning. No, that's the only way they know how to communicate that they're uncomfortable, they're lonely, they're cold, they're poopy, they need a new, they're that's how they're communicating. And from that whole situation, it's just, yeah. So that's a rabbit trail off the end times, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's connected to it still.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
It's connected to the end goal,
Hmm.
getting your kid to heaven no matter what. It's, I mean, there's so much scientific proof out there now and so much stuff with attachment theory. It's been proven that what you said about if they're crying, they need something. It's been proven that if a child cries in those early years and nothing happens, they don't bring about change. There's no meeting of the needs.
Hmm.
Um, there's so much stuff out there in the psychology world that's proven that what happens is that kids, they learn not to trust right from under a year old. They have no trust that if they ask for something, their needs will be met, and it impacts them for the rest of their life. It actually creates a learned helplessness
Hmm.
where they just give in. Um, and I truly believe you meet a lot. I truly believe a lot of the people that I've met, and I hadn't thought about it till now, but I believe a lot of the people I know that I've met that just give in. They give in at the hospital system. They don't fight with the doctors to get help. They don't fight at school. They don't fight to be heard. They don't, it's because they don't believe they can bring about any change. And most people just write it off as, oh, I don't have a lot of self-confidence. It's all right. I'll try and get some without looking to see that it's been trained into you sometimes, especially if you've grown up in a high control religion. Some of these things have been trained into you. And if you look at is that Steve Hassan's bite model,
Oh, yeah.
if you
Yep.
Googled instantly about high control religions
Hmm.
and cults and what they do, it's all in there. It's all documented for people to read.
Yeah, that the bite model is Steve Hassan.
I was hoping I remember the right name with that,
Yep.
but it's just so hard. Um, about the whole end times thing, I don't. Of course, your pastor's wife. You must have known about all the Ellen White stuff. The other thing that goes hand in hand with the end times fear is that whole thing about Revelation says this, and you'll know this is the real end times, but Adventists get an extra special early end time. You know that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The whole you never know, and Ellen White teaches you never know when probation's going to close because back in 1844, Jesus, for those of you that are in high control religions that aren't Adventist,
Right.
Google it if you want to know. But the shortest version is apparently Ellen White had this special vision and started the church based on in 1844 when the skies fell from the sky and these things happened that Jesus moved. Heaven has a sanctuary that mirrors the one that was in the Bible for the Israelites identically. And Jesus apparently moved into the most holy place and
Yep.
started the judging of his people. And so between 1844 and when he comes back again, you individually or me individually, I can never know when he's going to get to my name in the book of life. And then when he gets there and he does the little thing and judges me, that's it. It's done. I could live
Done.
another 20 years and it'll be too
Yep.
late. I can't
Yep.
change anything. It's
Yep.
done.
Yep.
So you have to be like, you never know when your time's finished.
Yeah.
Um,
And,
you,
and that's and that to me just seems so unfair and weird. And then the thing too is like if you died with any unconfessed sins, like you were in trouble because you had to confess everything. And I always thought what I was thinking, and I'm not sure I 100% ever bought into it because I was always like, that just isn't right. So, especially after I started driving, you're driving along and it's like, so what if I'm in a car accident or my car goes off a cliff or something? In my last few seconds of consciousness before I pass away, I am not saying good words because I guarantee you I wouldn't be. Or your last thoughts are not pure and holy and all of this. It, you're done. And people are like, well, that's not my Adventism. Well, I'm sorry. I was in it for 45 years, and that was the impression that I got. So if I got the wrong impression, then apparently I was taught wrong. Did I ever buy into that? Not really, because I didn't believe my God could be that unfair or that unreasonable.
wow, lucky you. I was totally convinced my God was that unfair and that unreasonable.
And I don't, well, and I think part of it too is I married a man who was, yes, he was an Adventist pastor, but he probably um wasn't a good Adventist pastor, if you know what I mean. Like he believed in grace, he believed in all of that stuff. And so um it, I think that I don't know, it's at a certain point you just go along to get along,
Yep.
you know,
Um,
as an adult.
yeah. I was just laughing because I think it started somewhere in my late 20s, early 30s. I started to be really embarrassed that I was an Adventist, and people would ask what religion I went to, and I'd say, oh, I don't believe in organized religion. I'm just a Christian, but I'd still go to church on Saturday.
Hmm.
Um, or if they really pushed me, I'd say, oh, I grew up a Seventh-day Adventist, but don't judge all of them by me because I'm not a really good one. And I was so embarrassed that people were going to think bad things about the Seventh-day Adventist Church because I was a bad one. And that meant that maybe, when the time came that God told them they had to become an Adventist and keep the Sabbath to be saved, they might not get there.
Sure.
So I used to tell people I was a bad one. So when you said your husband was a bad one, but you were meaning it as a positive thing, it reminded me of the things that I used to say. Um,
Yep.
it's my brother was caring. My brother was caring for my mum recently before she went into an old folks home, and he went in to get an IQ test done and stuff to see if he could live by himself and not on his own because he has some intellectual challenges and stuff.
Hmm.
And he actually passed his test and he did really well. But all the people, the extended family and the people that were helping care for mum, they all kept saying that he was too stupid to care for himself and he couldn't look after himself. And he currently is. He's living in a flat all by himself. He's cooking his own meals. He's doing his own shopping. He's doing his own washing and he's doing really well. But that's not the point. What I wanted to talk about was I I really struggled to talk to him. So up until these crises happened, I'd never had what I would call a conversation with him. He'd only give me yes or no
Sure.
answers. So I'm talking to my brother, and I said to him, there's extended family coming to help you pack up mum's house. I really need them to see the smart you. And he goes, okay. I said, you need to talk to them. And we discussed his brain. And I said, there's not much room. You don't have a lot of, you've got to have energy to talk to people. Is what I said. You've got to have energy. So I
Mhm.
need you to save your energy for communicating because he's quite high up the autism scale and he finds
Sure.
people exhausting.
Yeah.
I want you to save your energy and then talk to people. Let them see how clever you really are. And he said, okay. So we talked about the stuff that might be using up his energy. And where I'm heading is this. I said to him, hey, Paul, I'm concerned that you're addicted to watching. We have a TV channel here called Al Jazeera, and it's got all the BBC stuff on it, all the BBC news. It
Hmm.
plays Gaza 24/7.
Sure.
And we'd argued about that for a couple of years now because I kept saying to him, Mum would call me in tears and she couldn't stop crying. And what are you crying for? She was like, I've been watching all the babies die in Gaza. And I'm like, stop putting that TV channel on.
Right.
So my brother's addicted to it. And I said to him, tell me, tell me what's happening in the world at the moment. And it was incredible. It was the longest conversation we'd ever had in a long time, in years, the longest conversation. And he told me everything that was happening, what was happening in Gaza, what was happening in Palestine, what Trump's involvement was, what the New Zealand government's involvement was, what our deputy prime minister had said
Hmm.
about it. And I was just like going, wow, wow. I knew my brother was smart, but he's even smarter than I had even thought he was smart. It was incredible.
Hmm.
And I said to him, I need you to stop watching that just for 3 weeks. I need you to talk to family. I need you to interact with real people and just not watch television. And he said, I can do that. And I said, I want you to watch stupid programs. I said, if you need to watch telly, I want you to watch Friends,
Sure. Something lighthearted
um,
and fun.
all silly stuff. So, and it was incredible. So he stopped watching the BBC channel and he started watching the easy, light, fluffy stuff, the comedies. And he was so different to talk to. I could see the
Hmm.
difference in him because he's got less filters than the normal human.
Sure.
You can see the changes quicker. So in the middle of this conversation, what we got to is I kept saying we got down and I said to him, "What is it? Why? What is it that you need from watching this TV channel with all this BBC
Mm-hmm.
stuff on it? What do you need to know? And he said, I have to watch it because if I don't, I won't see the Bible signs for when Jesus is coming back. And he was tied to it by this end times fear.
Yeah.
And he's not the only one. He's not the only person. And the hardest thing is that if someone had even talked to me about this, I don't know, 20 years ago, I'd have been like, nah, no, no, that's not me. But when I look back now from the outside in, it was me, but it was so normal.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't look at it and think, this is wrong. This is not how God wants us to live when I didn't have anything else to compare it to. I had the one life, the one normal that was my life, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know any different. So I guess suddenly talking to you, I'm hoping that someone listening that's thinking I didn't go through that might try and see a different normal.
Yeah. I
Um,
think that
and yeah,
it's
so I was just you go for it. Oh,
and we've got to wrap up here in about 5 minutes or so anyway. So
mm,
I was just thinking too that now that I've spent a few years interacting with Christians outside of Adventism and their view of the end times, and even in more conservative circles like the Southern Baptist Convention, which is really conservative, they
yeah,
don't have a set view of what the end times are going to look like. There's maybe three different models, and nobody really, there probably are some that have very strong feelings one way or the other. But the majority of the people that I personally have interacted with are now, yes, they do believe that Jesus is coming at some point. As Adventists, we were sort of told that we were the only ones who believed that Jesus was going to come again.
yeah.
Many, many, many Christians, the majority of them do believe that Jesus will come again. It may look slightly differently for everybody. And they also don't have, like, this is exactly what it looks like. And I think we become so focused. I mean, I think there was an old hymn that says, "Don't be so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good."
Really good.
And I
Yeah,
think we're so focused on what is the end times going to look like. I know I've interacted with Adventists who are desperate to be off grid. Like they don't want to live in cities anymore because Ellen White said the cities are evil, must flee to the country or something to that extent. But if as Adventists you're interested in getting other people to be Adventists, shouldn't you be where the people are? Okay, just throwing that out there for a second. And also, and I hate to be fatalist or morbid, but the end could come for any of us at any time. So if we keep watching for the signs of the end, and are we using that as a time to shape up and do what we're supposed, the end times, it's so crazy making. It makes you distrust other people. I used to work for some lovely Catholic dentists, and people are like, "Oh, you're working for Catholics?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're great. They're awesome. I mean, I enjoy working for them." And we can't be suspicious of people all of the time, and that's what happens with that, being in Adventism. And I think it's impossible to cover all of those fears of the end times, you know?
but I, back to my story, I didn't realize until the last couple of months that it also impacted on my relationship with my other brother because he'd left the church and there were issues and stuff in there, and we reconnected about 4 or 5 years ago now, and we've been getting to know each other. And he's the coolest person. He really is.
Yeah.
But there was still up until I actually really realized that I never meant to leave the church. It happened by accident, and there's so many steps involved that I can't even cover them all if we had hours.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sorry. That was one of the things that made it really hard with reconnecting with him was that Bible verse that the Adventists always quote saying that, your brothers and your sisters and your mother and families will turn against each other. And I kept thinking, if God come back next week, my brother knows where I live. He'd turn me in. Maybe I shouldn't have told him where I live. And now he's out there going, hey, if you need God to tell you how to live a moral life, Wouldn't you really be safer with someone that actually just wants to be moral, not because it'll get them to heaven? And he's just such an awesome person. But I mean, these fears, I didn't even know it was impacting me. It was just sitting in the background in my
Mm-hmm.
subconscious, affecting relationships until it came to the fore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, I think we'll probably do another video addressing more fears. I'm sure we have a big list. If any of you watching have any that you'd like to add to our list in a comment, um, please write those down in the comment and like and subscribe below. And we'll probably include them in a video sometime because there's so many fears. Or if you want to come on and have a chat with us and be willing to be on YouTube, that would be awesome as well. Um,
Yes.
take care. Remember, Jesus loves you. And comment, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.